Where there is discord, may we bring harmony. Where there is error, may we bring truth. Where there is doubt, may we bring faith. And where there is despair, may we bring hope.
Yes, we're going straight to the palace where we think Margaret Thatcher is leaving.
Yes, we think this is Mrs. Thatcher this time. This is the first time we've seen Mrs. Thatcher as Prime Minister, and the cheers show it. Britain's first woman Prime Minister, a lot slower than the other car, which sped out some 15 minutes ago and got us all confused. This the first of what will be many trips just like this from Buckingham Palace down the Mall into Downing Street, a 2-minute trip, and Mrs. Thatcher will be arriving in Downing Street, that historic moment, in about 2 minutes' time. And now over to Jon Snow in Downing Street.
Of course, in that trip on the way from the palace to Downing Street, she will be allowed to drive through Horse Guards Parade. That'll be her prerogative as Prime Minister. Normally she'd have had to take the long route round. So we should see her coming into view here, and there are long queues of expectant people here now, long lines of police, helmets, and the rest. They're all waiting now for her to arrive. They don't know that she's left the palace, but the word will gradually creep round, and in a moment we should see her car swinging into view at the bottom of Downing Street. This is a historic scene which really, ever since pictures first started being taken in the last century, have marked the change of government. This is the symbol of the change, the moment when the new Prime Minister crosses the threshold of the doorstep into number 10. And of course, today it's very different because Mrs. Thatcher is the first lady ever to occupy this position in any Western country, as we've pointed out already. So everybody's waiting. It's a funny crowd. They only gave Mr. Callaghan a bit of a cheer. They've given the police quite a good cheer from time to time when one or two little amusing things have happened. People have been told to get off ladders and stop climbing around on Home Office windows. Foreign Office windows have been invaded. People have been hauled off them too. Everybody's sort of vying for a good little position to get that magic photo. Of course, unlike Sir Harold Wilson, who had himself photographed at the age of 8 or whatever it was in front of number 10, we haven't got any early pictures of Mrs. Margaret Thatcher. However, our programmes, I'm informed incidentally, for those of you who are watching our very long now election coverage, are going to be extended, especially in view of the dramatic nature of the events that have unfolded today.
Well, now, John, the police are obviously there in strength. Is Mrs. Thatcher on any kind of security risk?
Well, it seems that towards the end of the campaign, she was getting more security than Mr. Callaghan was, and I think certainly the tragic incident involving Mr. Airey Neave at the original, his death. Now, she's just coming into Downing Street now. Here comes the Prime Ministerial rover, bearing now Mrs. Thatcher as Prime Minister. A huge crowd and a huge cheer. Plainclothes police out of a car behind her, and Mrs. Thatcher out onto the doorstep. A wave that we've now become really quite well accustomed to throughout this campaign. Mr. Dennis Thatcher, her husband, standing behind.
Mrs. Thatcher, have you anything to say?
Just
in front, Mrs. Thatcher.
to the BBC, Mrs. Thatcher.
Yes.
It's been a wonderful campaign for you.
May I just
Congratulations.
thank you very much.
How do you feel at this moment?
Very excited, very aware of the responsibilities. Her Majesty, the Queen, has asked me to form a new administration, and I have accepted. It is, of course, the greatest honor that can come to any citizen in a democracy. I know full well the responsibilities that await me as I enter the door of number 10, and I'll strive unceasingly to try to fulfill the trust and confidence that the British people have placed in me and the things in which I believe. And I would just like to remember some words of St. Francis of Assisi, which I think are really just particularly apt at the moment. Where there is discord, may we bring harmony. Where there is error, may we bring truth. Where there is doubt, may we bring faith. And where there is despair, may we bring hope. And to all the British people, howsoever they voted, may I say this: now that the election is over, may we get together and strive to serve and strengthen the country of which we are so proud to be a part.
Prime
And
Minister,
finally, one last thing. In the words of Airey Neave, whom we had hoped to bring here with us, there is now work to be done.
Prime Minister, could I ask you if you would tell us what sort of administration you would like to have over the next 5 years?
Well, we shall be going inside and we shall be getting on with that as fast as we can.
Prime Minister?
And we'll hope to have some... Well, I think the first job is really to try to form a cabinet. We must get that done.
Prime Minister,
we can't really
how
get the
soon-
administration going until then. Well,
How soon do you think you'll be able to name your cabinet?
Well, certainly not today. I hope you'll
Perhaps
have some
tomorrow?
news by tomorrow evening. It's a very important thing. It's not a thing that should be suddenly rushed through. It's very important.
What will you be doing for the rest of today, Mrs.
I
Thatcher?
shall be here working.
Have you got any thoughts, Mrs. Thatcher, at this moment about Mrs. Pankhurst and your own mentor in political life, your own father?
Well, of course, I just owe almost everything to my own father. I really do. He brought me up to believe all the things that I do believe, and they're just the values on which I fought the election. And it's passionately interesting to me that the things which I learned in a small town, in a very modest home, are just the things which I believe have won the election. Gentlemen, you're very kind.
Prime Minister,
May
there's
I
a lot of
just go?
international
May I just
interest.
go?
Well, Mrs. Thatcher's now gone over to greet the crowd. Some very, very loud cheers, a lot of enthusiasm. It's all the police can do, really, to control some parts of the crowd and indeed even some parts of the press. It is a unique occasion. And there she was, indeed, quoting words of Airey Neave, who we were mentioning just before she came into Downing Street. And I think it was his assassination just before the campaign started that really has meant that the security has been as great as we've ever seen it for any national leader. I was saying in answer to Alistair Burnett's question that we have seen security around Mrs. Thatcher really very considerably strengthened in the last days of this campaign. Well, she's now doing an almost papal handshake, going down Downing Street, shaking every hand that she can possibly get hold of. There is great enthusiasm, a few boos at the back there, but then there are a few boos when Mr. Callaghan came out. There are some noisy voices shouting one or two things. There have been some elements shouting things about Ireland, but then Mr. Callaghan there had that too. It may well be that it's become a feature of day-to-day life for prime ministers when they're out in the open, as has this security. You can see really quite large numbers of plainclothes police behind Mrs. Thatcher, and she's now coming up towards us. And as she's coming towards the steps, and now she waves as Prime Minister once again, as she's done throughout this campaign. This is now the great photo call, and she's become really quite an expert at this. She spends really considerable minutes getting the right photograph. Well, she's done it now, and well, there she goes. She's going into number 10. And with that, I'll hand you back to Alistair Burnett in the ITN studio.
And as she goes into number 10, the staircase will go up before her. And going up, almost on every step, there are the photographs, the paintings, and the reproductions of her predecessors. And right at the very top will be her own, the first woman Prime Minister. Well, while that was going on, and while Mrs. Thatcher and Mr. Thatcher crossed over into number 10 Downing Street, some other news. Mr. Reg Prentice one of her major converts from the Labour Party, has held Daventry for the Conservatives, and the long recount in Reading North is over. Tony Durant has held it with a swing to him from Labour of 7%, and the mystery of that recount is, I think, quite clear. The Liberal got 12.4%, just below saving his deposit, and so it's a Liberal lost deposit there. One final word. Ladbrokes, the bookmakers, say they made a profit of about £20,000 on £882,000 placed in election bets. And if you still want to bet, they are making the Tories 6-4 on favourites to win the next general election. Leonard?